thank you for joining me so that you can learn more about the new law that Congress passed because it includes significant, and that's in capital letters, significant help for restaurants and other food and beverage establishments that have really been hammered during the COVID crisis. The National Association of Restaurants has estimated that 1 in 6 food and beverage businesses have closed permanently across our country since the beginning of the pandemic. That's more than 110,000 businesses. And small businesses are the backbone of our national economy. So this has really taken a toll. It's taken a toll on you. It's taken a toll on our economy. I'm the daughter of a small business owner. So I know firsthand the amount of time and money and energy that you put into your businesses. I know that you make sacrifices every day to serve your customers well, to build your customer base. You're the backbone of the American economy, as I said. So Congress provided help to small businesses over the last year through the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And there are federal abbreviations for all of this. But restaurants really needed more help. And so several members came together and drew up a bill, and it was put into the very large American Rescue Plan. So help is not only on the way, it's just about here. Last month, we passed that bill, $1.9 trillion. It's the single largest relief package in the history of the country, and you were a part of it. Restaurants will have a new $29 billion with a B revitalization fund to help you and other food and beverage establishments recover your losses that were carried during the pandemic. We're really fortunate, and I'm so pleased and happy and proud that Julie Clowes is with us today. Now, Julie is with the Small Business Administration, and she is going to explain how the new fund actually will work for you. She is the district director, so she's the boss of the SBA in the San Francisco district office, where she oversees the delivery of all of the SBA programs and services for 14 counties in Northern California. So she's our main woman in this. And we're really grateful to you, Julie, for agreeing to do this. And we welcome you. And to everyone that has joined us, Julie is going to make a brief presentation of the important elements of the program so that you understand it. And then we're going to take your questions. And I just want to say for those that would rather speak in Spanish and ask their questions in Spanish, one of my staffers is on board and will do the translating for you. So all you have to do is raise your virtual hand, but we'll even get that information to you in Spanish. So Julie, thank you again for doing this. And to each one of you that have joined us today, I want you to understand very clearly how this works for you. I worked really hard for this money, for the $29 billion that's part of this fund. And I want you to be able to not only understand it, but know how to access it because it's going to make a big difference. For me, it's been heartbreaking to see in the downtown areas, not only where I live, but throughout the district, to see the closures of restaurants. And Some of them were able to reopen for a while. Some are doing home deliveries. Others have sidewalk cafes now. And thank goodness the weather is warming up and we have more people vaccinated. But our restaurants are really our cultural touchstones in our community. We take our families there. We know the owners. They know us by our first names. We see our friends and our neighbors there. And so you're so important to all of us. So Julie, take it away, and everyone stay on board, listen carefully. If there's something you don't understand, you might jot it down. We want to take as many questions as possible. So the floor is yours, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman, and to your team for creating this platform today to talk about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So our RRF, because when you're in the government, everything gets reduced to an acronym, right? So RRF. And you can interpret that acronym any way you want. But this is going to be a very popular program, and SBA is working, really diligently to put together the framework for this program, create the application portal, and provide all of the potential applicants with as much information as possible. So today I'm going to see if I can talk and screen share at the same time. I'm going to talk you through what do we know about the program right now, and we're going to talk about what's in the legislation, and then some other ways that you as a potential applicant for this program can prepare yourself so when the application does go live, you'll be ready and you'll be able to jump right in and complete the application. So before we do a quick, before we start really jumping into the restaurant fund, I do like to just give quick status updates because I know there's probably going to be some questions about the existing programs as well. So the options for you as a business owner right now include a variety of grant and loan programs. So on the loan side, obviously the Paycheck Protection Program is still open and still taking applications through the lenders. We also have our Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. That's the one direct through SBA. That one is still open and taking applications. And the nice thing about this program now is that we are now able to accept applications, well, I should say requests from people who would like to increase the amount of their EIDL loan. So if you're a pre-existing EIDL loan holder, you now have the ability to request an increase, and those increases can go up to $500,000. Similarly, if you have not applied yet, you still have the opportunity to do so, and you can be considered for a loan up to $500,000. So I just wanted to point out that that happy news about the expansion of the EIDL program. On the grant side, you probably have heard about this targeted EIDL advance. And this is, I'll call it a cousin to the EIDL advance from this summer that was authorized under the CARES Act. It's not quite the same program. It does have different eligibility criteria. It is targeting low-income communities and also businesses that have at least a 30% or more revenue reduction. So this is not an open application program right now, at least. It is offered first per the legislation to businesses who applied for EIDL advance in 2020, but maybe did not receive all of the funding, the full $10,000, or applied, but the funding unfortunately had already run out by the time their application was submitted. So those are the first two priority groups that are being invited by SBA to apply for the targeted EIDL advance, and you'll get direct message for that. And then the other one I'm just going to say two words about, and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Most of you on this call are probably not eligible for this if you're a restaurant owner or in food service, but this program did open on April 8th and unfortunately had a lot of technical issues with the platform, and the platform was shut down. That will reopen, and SBA will be providing people with messaging in advance so that nobody is blindsided about the reopening of that. But let's talk more about you all and the restaurants. So this program is also considered a grant, but I want people to know it's not going to be run the same way the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant is running. It's going to be run more like a direct payment program, which is good news for all the potential applicants. And you will see on the screen, I don't want to necessarily read all of these different eligible entities, but you can see from this list, there are a lot of different types of food businesses that can be eligible for this program. So it's not just the traditional, brick and mortar restaurant. This includes all of our food trucks and food stands and, lounges and bars. And it can even include places that do serve the public in some capacity. It could be a brewery, a microbrewery, or a wine, a tasting room, for example. It can even include bakeries and some other organizations. The emphasis here, though, is that there has to be, at least in part, a service to the public. And by that, I mean that they have to have some direct-to-consumer sales as part of the business. It doesn't have to necessarily be 100% of the business, but it does have to be a part of the business in order to qualify for this. So the one type of food service industry, if you're 100% wholesaler and only selling to other businesses, you may not be eligible for this program. But we are still writing the absolute rules at the moment, so I would say stay tuned. But as reading the legislation and the way it stands now, it does not appear that pure wholesalers will be eligible, but anyone who has a direct-to-consumer sales component. And again, it is, while the 28.6 billion looks like a lot, we do know there's a lot of need, and we're going to get this program up and running as quickly. Well, it's already being in development, but we're going to launch it as soon as we're able. And I do want to encourage people to watch not only just SBA.gov, there is this little orange banner at the top that is the link to all of our COVID financing programs, but there's also going to be a unique website for this program, which you'll see on the final slide, but it's restaurants.sba.gov. So that is also another place to watch. I do expect detailed information to start flowing very quickly on this program, probably as early as next week. There'll be some content on the website, some more details. We are developing a user guide that's going to be very detailed about eligibility and all facets of the program, and then also the application side. The application will be on our website, so there will be a portal that you will be accessing, and the user guide is also going to be a companion to help people walk through that portal, hopefully screen by screen, to show you how to apply. Let me see. The other, let's go. You'll see also from this slide, that the grants, the individual grant amounts will vary from business to business, applicant to applicant. The maximum that a single site can receive, a single business, is 5 million, but that is up to 10 million if there are affiliated businesses. So if you own multiple affiliated food-related businesses, you can apply under the one umbrella business and receive up to 10 million to support multiple businesses. So there's a couple of things that I think will make people happy if they were following how the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant was run. For this particular program, the SAM.gov registration will not be required. Similarly, you will not need to obtain a DUNS number in order to apply for this program. So we'll be using just the ordinary identifier. So if you have an EIN, or if you're a self-employed and use your social security number, or if you have an ITIN, all of those will be what we will capture and utilize as your unique identifier. So thankfully, you will not have to go through the registration.gov portal. I also wanted to let people know that you can't apply for both Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It's one or the other, although I'm hard pressed to think of a single business that could probably qualify for both programs. So hopefully that's not an issue for most people. I also wanted to point out that you can receive both the Paycheck Protection Program loans and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, but they will subtract the amount of your PPP loans from the final amount you're eligible for under the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And let me see what my next. So before we get into preparing, I am going to talk a little bit more about the program itself. So the legislation, America Rescue Plan, gives us the framework for this program. And what SBA is doing is developing the details and the policies so that we can implement this program. And I kind of have thought through all of the scenarios, and that's what's being developed right now. So you saw the slide for the eligible entities. There are a handful of businesses that per the legislation are not going to be eligible, and that does include nonprofits. So this program is for-profit food service industry. It also is not eligible for any publicly traded companies. And unfortunately, if the business is already permanently closed, it's not eligible. So if you had to temporarily close because of health restrictions and other things, that's fine. But any permanently closed businesses will not be eligible for this program. What can you spend the money on? Well, you can spend it on pretty much any ordinary business expense that you can think of. So this can include everything from payroll expenses to principal and interest on a mortgage if you own your building or your facility, or rent if you're leasing the facility. You can pay utilities with it. You can do any kind of maintenance expenses. So and this can include if you're maybe you're building a parklet or some sort of outdoor seating area, you can use the funds to help support that as well. You can use it for supplies that you need kind of in the ordinary course of operating your restaurant or food service facility. And this can also include PPE for you and your employees. It can also include the normal food and beverage expenses that you incur. So pretty much and also operating expenses. So this typically includes things like if you had to subscribe to an online service, for example, to help do delivery or takeout orders. Those kinds of operating expenses can be included in this as well. And so I think the next big question is, how much can I get under this program? So the legislation gives us a framework for how people can calculate how much they could be eligible for. So in this, the language used in the legislation is covering pandemic-related revenue loss. So what does that mean? The quick way to think about it is if you were in business in 2019, we're going to look at your 2019 gross revenue compared to your 2020 gross revenue, subtract, and the difference between the two is essentially the amount you can be eligible for under this program. If you also have obtained a PPP loan, then the PPP loan will be subtracted from that amount as well. So basically your 2019 revenue less your 2020 revenue, and the difference is what you can be eligible for. Now, I know some people might say, hey, I wasn't in operation all of 2019, or maybe I was a business that actually opened during the pandemic, so how do I calculate that? Their SBA has been given authority through this legislation to come up with additional formulas to try to cover those different scenarios. So there's going to be guidance given on how you can calculate how much you're going to be eligible for under this program if you weren't in operation for all of 2019 or even all of 2020. So this program is trying to be very expansive and try to cover as many businesses and as many scenarios as possible. And again, this is going to be a maximum of $5 million per physical location, with the maximum of $10 million if you have affiliates. This program is also going to have a priority period. So if the legislation it already dictates one kind of priority period, and then also gives SBA the flexibility to create additional priority periods or to create set-asides as we think are needed to help service this community. So per the legislation, of this $28.6 billion, $5 billion is going to be carved out for those businesses, those restaurants and food service industry that have 2019 gross receipts or gross revenue of less than $500,000. So that's $5 million carved out to try to go to some of the smaller businesses. And I know SBA is also working on additional carve outs to try to target the different size businesses and give everybody, make sure they have fair access to this fund, to this grant program. But then the legislation does allow us to do $5 million as a carve out for those businesses whose 2019 revenue was less than $500,000. And we're also going to be able to create a priority period for the first 21 days. Per the legislation, this priority period is going to be for businesses, entities that are owned by women, veterans, or socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. And you might be wondering what the heck that means. And I will encourage you to take a look at the definitions SBA uses for its government contracting programs, because the legislation ties to those definitions. So for women and veterans, well, actually for all of the categories, the designation woman, veteran, or socially and economically disadvantaged needs to be at least a 51% owner And they also must have day-to-day management control over the business. If you have multiple owners of the business, you can look across all the different owners and kind of aggregate that ownership, and to look to see if you have women owners, veteran owners, or socially and economically disadvantaged. Socially and economically disadvantaged definition in particular ties to our 8A program, if you're familiar at all with our government contracting program. And there are very lengthy definitions of what socially disadvantaged means and what economically disadvantaged means. I will not read off those very lengthy definitions for you, but to know that you can take a look at that. Socially, there are ways that you can qualify if you are a business owner who is Asian American, African American, Hispanic, Native American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone right now. Those will be deemed to automatically qualify. And then economically disadvantaged is a read through the description of that. These are going to be self-certification, so you don't have to go obtain a certification. You don't have to fill out any lengthy paperwork to demonstrate this. It's going to be a self-certification. And let me then go back and now talk about ways to start getting ready to prepare for this application. So like I said, it will be an online application, and the application form will be made available, is my understanding, in advance. So you can kind of take a look at what the questions will be and what kind of data you're going to actually need to submit. It's probably going to be a combination of data that you enter in through the application and then files that you may need to upload as supporting documents. So to that vein, I would also get ready and start to gather different documents that you will probably need. You will need to show your revenue information for 2019 and 2020. This can be done through financial statements. So I would go back and make sure your 2019 financials and your 2020 financials are fully completed and up to date. You've done any reconciliations or whatever you might need to do to have up-to-date financial statements. This is going to demonstrate, obviously, your gross revenue. Similarly, your 2019 tax returns. And if you haven't filed your 2019 tax returns because of an extension or something, if you are able to file those, I do encourage you to do so as soon as possible. Likewise, 2020 tax returns. Clearly, they're not due for most businesses right now, but I would encourage people to not wait on their 2020 tax returns and try to stay on top of that. And if you have a draft version available, that may help you with your application as well. You won't have to submit 2020 tax returns just yet, because obviously they're not due, but I would make sure that you stay on track with getting your 2020 tax returns prepared. And then the other form that will need to be submitted, and I know SBA will provide a copy of this, so you don't have to go search for it, but it's the Irs Form 4506T. So what this is an authorization to the IRS that you sign that enables SBA to get your IRS tax transcripts direct from the IRS. So those are going to be the basic documents that you're going to need to have ready and available in order to complete your application. I also encourage, if especially if financial statements are not your strong suit, you may want to engage one of our business advisors to help you. We have multiple programs, and there are dozens of locations and access points across the Greater Bay Area. You may be familiar, hopefully you're familiar with some of these programs, the Small Business Development Centers, our SCORE program, and our women's business centers. They all have free business advising, and they've been ramped up and are ready to assist businesses, especially with applications or understanding some of the nuances with these different COVID-related financing programs. Our SBDCs also have a finance center, and the core of business advisors that's pretty much all they've been doing for the last year is really helping people with any challenges they might be facing as they prepare and as they apply for the different financing programs, whether they're from SBA or even from the state of California. So if you need that kind of one-on-one assistance, I do recommend that you engage our business advisors, and you can go ahead and do that now, and they can help you prepare to get ready. And then the last thing, if you don't want to keep stalking the website, because I know that could be annoying, you can also sign up for email notifications that come direct from my office, from my team. So the great thing about this is, as soon as there's new information on the website, as soon as we know the portals are open, we blast that information out to people who sign up for our email blasts. And you can just go to our website at sba.gov/ca/SF, and you can sign up directly to have those emails sent to you. And lastly, there's other ways to connect with us and try to stay up to date. We do have a Twitter account, and we do try to push out the information via Twitter as soon as we have it available. There's a bunch of the direct links to the different program websites. And then the best way to reach, my team here based in San Francisco is through our email box. While we're all working remotely, the email is the fastest way to reach us. And that's the SFO mail at sba.gov. That's monitored continuously. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and be ready for questions.
Julie, let me just jump in and thank you for your presentation. I think one of the most important things that I learned from you is that that the business owners need to become prepared to apply. So you need to gather your documents. And is there a pre-application that's accepted, Julie?
No, there's no pre-application. It'll just be when the portal opens. We will put out a copy of like a paper version of what you will see on the online. So that's a good document as soon as that's available, which should be within a week or two. You can take a look at that. So then you're mentally ready to know what questions you're going to get when you're actually completing the application.
But can someone fill out an application right now? And then as the doors open, they can submit it right away?
It's going to be embedded in the website. So the application itself won't be an upload. It'll be a series of online questions. So if they complete it in advance, they'll still have to go in and do the online questions. There may be some other ways they can apply, and waiting to get the details on that from our headquarters team as they're setting this up.
Well, I think what's really important for everyone that's joined us today is that you be prepared so that you can fill out your application. So your tax returns are important, and the other few things that were listed. I want you to be able to access this money to cover your losses due to COVID so that you really can get on your feet and back into full swing in your businesses. And it's I think we need to remind everyone that this is a fund of monies that are grants. These are not loans. There are other SBA programs that Julie described that were loans. This is not. So this does not have to be repaid to the federal government. So I think that's terrific, and why we worked so hard to pass this so that you could be helped. Okay, so let's go to questions. If there's anyone let me just go to Baltazar, who's my staffer, who very quickly is going to give some information in Spanish.
Si usted prefiere hacer una pregunta en español, por favor, levante su mano virtual y nosotros le ayudaremos en español. Gracias.
Thank you, Baltazar. Okay, right to questions.
All right, so we've got several people with their hands raised, as well as several questions in the chat. We're going to begin with those with their hand raised, starting with Mimi Boyle. Mimi,
Hi, Mimi.
I believe that you can unmute yourself now and ask your question.
I did. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Eshoo. I appreciate this. And I have to tell you, I'm generally on all of your phone conference things that you have been doing for the past
telephone town hall meetings, right?
Town hall meetings. I get them all the time, and I listen to most of them. So it's
good. Great.
Appreciate you helping us out with this. So I'm actually representing my sister, who owns 2 small independent restaurants in Santa Cruz, and did not have time to do this herself. But she has had a PPP loan, which she's trying to, turn over into a grant. She just has to complete that paperwork, I believe. So what I'm wondering is, she has 2 separate restaurants. I don't know she's the sole owner of both of them. I don't know if they're considered affiliated or not. Does she apply as one unit for both of them, or should she apply for separate, 2 separate ones?
Good question.
Yeah, so if the businesses each have unique EIN numbers, so that each one has a separate EIN, you can apply for 2 You can apply
Okay.
separately and under each EIN. So each business is going to have a unique EIN. There are some organizations, depending on how they structured their restaurants, they might own multiple restaurants across the area and they might have it under one holding company. So in that case, it would be one application, although it might be able to support financially multiple locations. But in this case, it sounds like if there's two EINs, she can do two applications, one for each restaurant.
Okay, that's great. And then, I mean, you mentioned in your remarks that some information might be coming out online on your website next week, and then some might be coming out in the next several weeks, the next 2 weeks. I'm sure she's on your email list, and if she's not, she will be before the end of the day.
Okay.
But so should she just expect to hear from you then, or is it better to be checking that website on a continual basis? Or she's anxious to do this, let me tell you.
Sure, of course. Of course. And then that's why this program is moving, pretty rapidly. They really want to get this money out as quickly as possible because we know this industry is one of obviously the hardest hit. So yeah, both will work. She can sign up for our email blast, and as soon as we have that information, we start sharing it out so that people know where it is, and we put the direct links in that. Or they can keep checking the website as well. So hopefully those things would happen in sequential order. It's posted on the website, and then we send our email blast out that lets everybody know what information is available and exactly where they can find it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, Mamie. Good to hear from you. Next question.
All right, next we'll hear from Edna.
Hi, Edna.
Yeah, my name's actually Enda, but it's a common
Enda, I'm sorry.
And Congresswoman, you don't represent myself or my wife who has restaurants that you're adjacent. So I guess what we call Panetta adjacent.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. Jimmy and I work really closely together. So you've got two instead of one. How's that?
I'm sure you do. And next time I see you at a town hall, I'd love to hear where you were on January 6th and make sure that never happens again. So,
well, you're very
Julie,
kind. Thank you.
Sure. Julie, thank you so much for participating. The SBA has been literally a lifesaver during this mess for businesses. You guys, you guys have hit a grand slam for centuries, as far as I'm concerned. And I've always been skeptical about government, but this is when it's coming through and showing this is why we have government, is to help us. But as much as I enjoy looking at both of your lovely faces, it would be great to have the screen showing the email where we can sign up to get your report again, because I just got part of it down, capital SFO mail, and I couldn't get the rest of it. So if someone's able to bring that screen back up, or you'll put it up at the end, that would be wonderful. So my question, you guys have been really exhaustive on this program, so I want to thank you for that. I don't really have any direct questions about that. I have sort of an ancillary question regarding the PPP. So the first question is we've applied for forgiveness for it, and that was months ago that we applied, and they keep telling us it's in progress. They're not asking for any information. So I've tried to explain to my wife that's because you guys are so busy shoveling money out the door that you're not terribly concerned about making sure it all gets forgiven right away. So anyway, I was wondering if that surmising on my part made any sense, or what's the timeline for people to expect to hear back on a forgiveness application? And then the second question is, unfortunately, the software that the bank that we used screwed up on the second round of the PPP and only allowed us to apply for a multiplier of 2.5, which was for normal businesses rather than a 3.5 that restaurants and hotels were eligible for. And so we did, thank you very much, receive the 2.5 number, but that left $40,000 on the table that we weren't able to collect. Is there a possibility of going back and applying again for that additional $40,000 on the second round PPP?
Okay, yeah, so I'll tackle the second round PPP question first. So it depends. You won't be able to apply for a new like a third PPP, but depending on where it is in the process and the timeline, what I would try to do is go back to the lender and see if we're still within the window where you can amend that the second PPP application, the one that you had recently submitted, to see if you can get use the 3.5 multiplier. Because it depends on where it is in that process, if they've dispersed the funds and what the reporting is to SBA. There is a small window in there where the adjustments are possible, but there is a point of kind of no return where it gets to be too difficult to make those adjustments. So I would say try to have that conversation with your lender. I realize sometimes that's a challenge. So that's another reason you can reach out to my team, and we can try to take a look at and see if we can tell where that loan is in its life cycle, and see if we can reach out to the lender on your behalf. We have good luck in some cases, and I'll be quite frank, not so good luck in other cases, but we will try our best.
Well, that's great, Julie. And to thank you. We will make sure that everyone that's participating today has the correct email address. And I wish it was on the screen. It's a good suggestion. But let's take the next. I want to be able to answer as many questions about this huge fund. Enda mentioned that was so complimentary of the SBA, and I agree. But don't leave the Congress out of this. It's only Congress that can appropriate the dollars. And I'm really grateful to so many of my colleagues that consistently made restaurants and food service operations and bars and all of that a real priority. And I had to get that in because I just can't. I can't let it go. I'm so grateful to them. And this is the most money, obviously, that's ever been appropriated for restaurants in the history of our country. So I want you all to get back on your feet as soon as possible. I want to see the money get to you. So let's take the next question.
All right, next we'll hear from Charles.
Hi, Charles.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. I have actually a very simple question. My
Sure.
restaurants are on a fiscal year ending September 30th. The information you're requesting, is it a calendar year or do I use a fiscal year when I'm completing my application?
I would use the calendar year because that's going to align with your tax returns, and so then your revenue figure.
The tax returns are on a fiscal year.
Oh, your tax returns are on a fiscal year? Okay. I would use the data that's going to align with your tax returns and that revenue reporting, because that's your tax returns, your tax transcript are going to be used to verify your revenue.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Charles. Next question, Katie.
Next we'll hear from Dan.
Hi, Dan. Hi,
Sorry,
Dan.
Dan,
Are you there, Dan?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, your voice is not very.
Dan's my husband. He's sitting right here, but I have the question.
Okay, go ahead.
We have a small restaurant here in the Aptos area. The question I had was, is the calculation of monies based on our P&L, will they be pre-tax, or how's that going to be handled for later down the road when the government decides to tax us on the money we receive? That also goes for the PPE monies, which I know are being discussed as whether or not California is going to be taxing them, because those monies have been spent, and now we're going to have to come up with, whatever, 30, 35%, whatever percentage you guys decide to tax them on.
So I can only speak from the IRS, the federal side, that these COVID financing programs are considered a non-taxable event. So the grant funds, the PPE forgiveness amounts are not considered revenue for the purpose of your federal tax return. And as we note now, that through the clarification in the law, that you can even do deductions for the business expenses. Even if you paid those business expenses out of PPP funds or one of the grants, you can still deduct them. Every state is treating differently. I know in California, I believe it's still under debate because I haven't seen a final ruling, and I think they were going to align at least partially with the federal requirements. I think it was going to be a non-taxable event for revenue, and they were going to allow, I think the proposal was to allow $150,000 worth of deductions.
Yeah, let me just add something. This was a question and that the IRS needed to do a ruling on, but I can tell you that there were many members that came together and weighed in with the IRS saying, this is to help people, not to place another burden on them with a surprise bill of taxes owed on monies that were either borrowed or granted. So I think we've done a good job on this, and I'm glad that you raised the question, because I think it's something that others are paying attention to as well. So tell your husband, Dan, you did a great job in asking the question.
All right.
Next question. Next question.
Next, we'll hear from Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us all to this event. My wife and I own a restaurant in Palo Alto, and basically, like everyone else probably on this call, we've been treading water for a year plus. We were excited to see the opportunity to participate in the fund, but the number seems a little concerning in terms of the amount allocated towards this program, especially considering how much has already gone out with the PPP loan. So my first question would be, is there a backup plan in place to, up this fund if it's fully committed, let's say?
Well, I'll take that question, Michael. Based on what Congress has done previously, we have replenished the funding for many of the programs that we put into place from the beginning of the pandemic. So while I can't say absolutely yes, and by such and such a date, these monies have not even gone out yet. But it's one of the biggest pots of money that we have put together, including other other bills that were signed into law last year. There were 5 big bills last year. This one is the largest of all. So I wouldn't worry about replenishment now. I want you to be able to secure funds from this. Was I at your restaurant recently and sat outside? Are you still there? No, he's offline. I think I know who it is. Well, I hope you heard me. Anyway, we can take the next question.
All right, next we'll hear from Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Hi, thank you very much. And I do enjoy your town hall meetings as well.
Well, thank you.
I'm in a unique position. My mother has run a bed and breakfast up in Ben Lomond, across the street from McPherson's grandparents' old home, just a point for the last 30 plus years. Since Jack and I have retired from the airlines, we've been down here for 15 years running the property. We have no employees. We are the employees. We run it. We pay the bills. Our revenue for 2020 was down by over 80%. So obviously we're in our savings accounts trying to pay bills, work on the property, because as you know, in the Santa Cruz Mountains, there's always something to do on property. And we've been kind of stonewalled when it came to the PPP. And this is why your program, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, is interesting to me, because we do run a full service bed and breakfast, which means I do serve breakfast to the guests. But I can't get beyond any form, because they always want to know the employees and how we pay them. And we're not the employee. I mean, we are the employees. We have no employees on staff. And so I don't even know if we'll even be able to qualify for this fund. Julie, can you help Gail out here?
Sure. And for the purposes of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the number of employees is not, to my knowledge right now, a factor in the application. So, and then for PPP in particular, and even for our EIDL program, PPP, you would be considered employees for the purposes of that program, and could have qualified potentially for some funding. And likewise for EIDL, which is a working capital loan, that can be used to pay yourself or to pay any of your other business expenses. So I definitely would like to talk to you more and maybe get you with a business advisor to sit down and kind of flesh out which of these programs would be the most advantageous for your business.
And how do we make that work? How does Gail contact you to be put in touch with a business advisor?
Yep, she can contact us. She can go to asksbdc.org, and she can find the closest SBDC to her, which I'm not sure where exactly you are, if Santa Cruz is closer or if in San Mateo, but we do
definitely be closer.
Okay, so yeah, between Santa Cruz, Silicon Valley, San Jose, and San Mateo, we have multiple business advising networks, and they can do it all virtually, so you don't have to travel anywhere.
Good, that's great. Gail, I think that this is going to be very helpful to you, and I know that my constituents in the Santa Cruz part of our congressional district, have just gotten it. Just one layer on top of another, the pandemic, the effect that it's had on businesses, the fires that destroyed so many homes and put people, to put it mildly, in harm's way. It's really been rough. But I want to see you helped with this. And this is a grant. This is not a loan. So anyway, thanks for dialing in. And if you get stuck somewhere, call the office and we'll make sure you're connected. Okay. Let's take the next question.
Next, we'll hear from Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
You hosting so many town halls. They've been very helpful for me as I run my small businesses.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Colleen. What's your question, dear?
Question is about reimbursements. Like many small business owners, I'm sure I had to use personal funds to cover expenses over the last year plus. I'm wondering how we go about using this RRF funds to possibly replenish some of my personal savings accounts.
That's a good question.
So I think if you have, I know that this program is going to have what they call a covered period, and that's the period for which there were expenses that you can use the funds to pay for. And it will go back a little ways, but it's also looking forward. So if you have receipts and all of that you show that you had paid, whether it's utilities or what other expenses you had, that would make sure you keep all of that stuff in case you need to produce it for the grant purposes. But that should be, in my opinion, that would be something that you could reimburse if you have, the actual documentation to show that you did incur and pay those expenses.
Okay, thank you. And you don't know what the term will be yet? Do you know what the coverage period will be yet?
I believe it's February of 2020, I believe was the start date.
So it'll cover the whole year.
It kind of aligns with, when the pandemic and the shelter in place.
Okay,
orders.
wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Colleen. Good question. It helps other people too. Each question answered is a question that can be on someone else's mind. Let's take the next one, Katie.
Next, we'll hear from Russell.
Hi, Russell.
Hi, thank you so much.
There you are. Wow, I can see you.
Can you see me? Okay. You see the whole kitchen behind me. I'm calling you from Kitchen Town, where we enable and work with 25 to 35 food companies who have all been affected. So all of your answers are going directly to a lot of different people. My question specifically, I have a couple of them. One is the subtraction of the PPP funds from the RRF grant equal to those funds loaned or funds actually forgiven? That's my first question. And then the second one is, the terms on this grant seem to be very friendly to restaurants and food companies, and even better than the terms of the PPP funding and the EIDL loans. And to that extent, is it possible to repay those other programs and take the grant funds from the RRF instead?
Great questions, Russell. Yeah. I'm dying to hear the answer.
So for any long-term debt, whether you have an EIDL loan or something else, you won't be able to take the grant funds, the RRF funds, and make a wholesale payment, like a lump sum payment payoff, but you certainly can make the incremental payments, like whatever the monthly payments you would have for any debt. If you have, large credit card debt, if you have another loan from, years ago that you're still paying on, any of those debts, you can certainly use the funds to make those regular payments, but it cannot be used to make the full lump sum like payoff.
That's great.
Yeah. And
the subtraction of the PPP funds, is that are those funds loaned or funds forgiven?
It's my understanding it's the funds loaned. So, but that's a great question though, and that's something that I will make sure that our headquarters team is crystal clear on in the information that is forthcoming, because that's a very good question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Russell. Great questions. Next question, please.
Next, we'll hear from Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, So I have 4 locations. I want you to
be doing even greater. What's your question?
Yeah, we have 4 locations here in the Bay Area and 1 in Vegas. And I am very concerned about the money running out too. Someone else mentioned earlier. And like obviously getting the tax return lined up and getting your application in is going to be critical. Is there any other advice that you can give to like really have all your ducks in a row so that the money doesn't run out?
I would say that, if you pay attention to the website, and so as the information is, what we are going to do is put out this information and give people time to digest it before the portal goes live for applications.
And
so,
Julie, when does that go up? Is that up now, or is it coming up the beginning of the week?
Yeah, I don't have the date certain yet, but I would tell people to be ready for it to be sooner rather than later. I know they're targeting to get that up and running as quickly as they can. Please don't send me hate mail if this doesn't happen, but I do expect we'll start seeing the information flowing next week. That's what I'm thinking. So I would definitely watch that space, and then that's going to tell you what exactly you need, and so you can just have everything ready to go. So I do encourage people to read the information as it's revealed. I know there's going to be a user guide that's going to answer a lot of questions, and including all the ones probably in the chat that we might not have time to get to. So I do encourage you to stay on top of that information as it's available. And then also, if you need to leverage a business advisor to kind of help you figure out the best structure for how you're going to apply, if depending on how your business is organized.
Okay. Well, we've been on for just almost an hour. I think we can squeeze in a couple more, right, Julie?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go to the next one.
All right. Next, we'll hear from Larry.
Hi, Julie and Congresswoman. Hi, Larry Chu. We have a restaurant in your district.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all of your efforts for restaurants in our industry. This last year has been very frightening, nerve-wracking, stressful.
It's terrible.
And anything that kind of shines a ray of sunshine is a ray of hope. But we're still nervous. Whenever these things become available, you get nervous. You kind of feel like it's a race for time. Julie just said that next week the portal's going to be open, so everyone's like scrambling around to make sure that they can get all the ducks in a row to get in, just kind of like we did with the PPP. My question is twofold. One is, how fluid is the process going to be? For example, when you look at kind of the formula, your gross receipts minus 2020 and then minus PPP loans first and second draw. Some of those things, like the second draw, haven't been, they're still accepting applications for the second draw still. But you were like, well, we have to get this in right on time. Let's just forget the second draw. How fluid are we to be able to fill out the application, put it in, and then later say, oh, you know what, the second installment of the PPP did go through. I'm sorry I didn't apply that on the thing. The other thing that I'm nervous about is that, we're a third of the way in through 2021, and people are still incurring a lot of losses that are not included in this formula. So any idea or advice for, trying to rush and get in the first in line for these grants, or kind of wait and see how things line up? Any advice for us?
Sure. Well, we do know from the legislation there will be a priority period, and it'll be for those categories talked about: women-owned, veteran-owned, and socially and economically disadvantaged owned businesses. So while there will be a race to get in, presumably, that's the first category that will be processed, and so that's one thing to be cognizant of. And I would watch I think next week the information is going to start flowing. I don't know that the portal will start accepting applications yet. It may, but I would be first watching for the information, and then knowing you're going to have, a day or two or three to get ready, really get ready before the portal opens. Your second point about the application for the second PPP, and maybe it won't be processed yet for whatever reason by the time you apply for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. That's a great question. I actually made a note of that, and I'm going to forward that to our headquarters team to make sure that that's something that's under consideration as they're putting the final touches on this program and are about to push the information out. So thank you for that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Hope to see you soon. Let's take just one more, and then we'll bring things to a close.
All right. Next, we have Amara.
Hi, Amara. Can you hear me, Amara?
Hi, yes. Oh, sorry. This is his wife, Gina.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Irs Form. So we actually bought a restaurant in Santa Cruz in October 2020. And then so we weren't sure if we were actually eligible to apply. I'm 30% owner. He's 30% owner as well of the rest. 25% owners, 25% owners. So we have like a share to it. So I don't think we qualify for the just complete women owned, because I heard you said 51%. But I wasn't sure if we can apply for the this grant or anything, because we just opened in October.
She's 25% on and I'm 25% on, and I'm an immigrant, and then she's a woman, and then to be honest, my other partner has a lots of other conditions too, so I don't know whether we are eligible for this grant. And then we haven't filed any taxes for last year yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that in about a month. I have our appointment with the tax guy. Do you guys have any advice? Sorry, thank you.
Yes. Yes, you should be eligible to apply. How the calculation for your scenario, because you weren't in business for all of 2019 or all of 2020. So I'm waiting for the more specific guidance onto how you will do your calculations given your scenario. But I would say yes, absolutely. You should qualify and you should apply.
Well, that's very good news. Well, it's let's see, it's a little after 11 for everyone at home, a little after 2 for me here in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many questions we haven't been able to take today, Katie. My assumption is that we had a lot of people in the queue. What I hope we have is the ability for those that did that are participating today to leave their questions for us. And we can circle back with them with an answer. We do that in our telephone town hall meetings, and I hope that we can we have that ability to do that today. Do we?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. You can just leave your contact info in the chat along with your name, your address, your phone number, and your email, and we'll get back to you.
Wonderful. So make sure you do that, and we'll certainly work with Julie and her team so that you have the most accurate answer. I just would like to encourage everyone, number one, to look at this in a very positive way. And I know it's hard for us to flip on the switch of positivity because people have really been through hell for a year. I understand that. I understand it really well. So I've said it before, I'll repeat it again. We worked hard to make sure that we put something together for the restaurant owners, bars, and food businesses. While we did other things, they were not restaurant centered. This is. I know you're worried about the money running out. Don't worry about that down the road. Get your whatever you need to put together, as Julie has outlined, as the the slides show. Get your paperwork together so that you're ready to apply as the doors open. And I want to see these funds that we fought so hard to secure. I want to see them get to you ASAP. And I know that Julie and her entire team does as well. So thank you, everyone. And any comments that you may have about how we did this today, if you think it's terrific or how you would grade it, if you have suggestions on how to do it better, let us know, because we're open to that. So Julie, all of my thanks to you for your special leadership and to your team that I know has been working so hard to implement everything that the Congress has put in place. And we've just been grinding out legislation for all of last year and now this huge package this year. And, without the agencies that actually do the implementation, our work is not fulfilled. So we're here to assist you. Please do leave your questions for us, comments, critiques, and we will circle back with you. And to everyone that tuned in today, thank you. And God willing, 2021 is going to be a much better year for each one of you, for all of our communities, all of our small businesses, and our entire country. That's my goal for all of you. So thank you. Bravo, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.